A lot of people are looking for a no-nonsense electric car that's cheap, that's practical, and also has great range. Not a lot of cars can tick all those boxes, but here's one that might be able to. It's the Hyundai Kona Electric. When I say it's practical, it's a small family SUV with loads of space. When I say it's got good range, it will do 300 miles. And when I say it's affordable, the entry-level car starts from £27,000. And online, on a PCP, you can pick one up for around £450 a month, which sounds like a lot, but for an EV with 300 miles, trust me, that's a bargain. So it's an attractive proposition, but is it attractive to look at? Well, I'll let you be the judge. For what it's worth, I think it looks like a crossover. Pretty generic in its shape, but entirely inoffensive. And that's a compliment. Who wants an offensive looking car? I like the paint finish, which is called Smurfy Blue Metallic, and the fact it has a light on the front logo that illuminates to tell you when it's not safe to touch any of the high voltage cables under the bonnet. Not that you ever would. But I'm not so sold on the lights, which at the front have slim DRLs and chunky lower main beams. Likewise, at the rear, the brake lights are totally separate to the reverse and indicator lights. I really don't know why they do that. I mean, is it too expensive to have one set of lights that does everything? Anyway, while I'm back here, let me show you the boot. It opens manually, no electric operation here. And it's a fairly decent size, 332 litres, not massive, but it's well shaped. There isn't an awful lot of underfloor storage, and your charging cable is kept in a bag, which does eat into some of the room. It's got a flat load area just here, which is nice, and the rear seats fold down fairly easily, so you can get yourself a washing machine in the back of there. So decent amount of space, although to be honest, not that much bigger than say a Ford Fiesta. While I'm here actually, let me just have a word with some of you Americans out there. Every single time I do a review of a Hyundai, somebody pipes up and says it's pronounced Hyundai like Sunday. No, it's not. Not in the UK. Over here, Hyundai taught us to say Hyundai. It's in all of their adverts pronounced Hyundai. So don't come in my comments telling me how to pronounce that in this country. All right? Sorted. Where was I? Oh yeah, rear space. It's okay. I fit. I've got lots of headroom, although leg room for anyone around the 5'11" mark might be a bit on the tight side. What might be more of a concern is foot space. There's not a lot of it. My feet just about fit under the seat in front, but it is quite snug, probably because the battery is in the floor and eats up some space. Also, our test car didn't feature any rear USB ports, or any rear ventilation, which seems a bit mean. But it does have a fold-down armrest with a couple of cup holders. Thanks, Hyundai. Now, what's it like from the best seats in the house? Well, it's all right. It's all right. Look, this isn't a car that's built to make people say, wow, but it does the basics really well. I hear a lot of people complaining about the material quality in some Hyundais, including this one, but it's actually not that bad. All right, yeah, there is a bit of scratchy plastic going on the lower section of the dashboard, but just above that, you've got some textured stuff, which I think looks quite premium. I think the main problem is the fact that on the center console, you've got quite a lot of this gray plastic, which doesn't look amazing. It also appears here on the lower section of the steering wheel, but if you got rid of that and swapped it out for some gloss black, I think that would lift the cabin quite substantially. But look, I'm not a snob today, and I will say that the cabin, to me, is all right. A quick word on practicality, you've got a couple of cup holders, you've got a big old storage area in the center console, you've got a little flap just in front of the cup holders for a wireless charging mat for your mobile phone, and also a USB port. You also get a second USB port underneath this false floor just below the center console, and a 12-volt socket, but I do wish they'd given a few more USB ports. In this day and age, the more USBs, the better. Something else I have a little moan about is the amount of space you get in the door pockets. It's not massive. There's enough space in there for a drink and maybe some Haribo, but that's about it. Although having said that, those are two of the major food groups in my household, so maybe I shouldn't complain too much. I've only got positive things to say about the technology in this car as well. It's got a nice big digital driver display which shows off your speed, your tire pressures, and whether you're putting power into the motor or recuperating energy back into the battery. You got a nice big infotainment screen as well, which is really simple to use. A lot of manufacturers go for these flashy animated icons on their screens, but this is no nonsense and everything is nice and easy to find. It's also got a row of physical buttons, shortcut buttons that make it so easy to find the specific screen that you need. Also, look at this. It's got knobs, big twiddly knobs for adjusting the volume and also changing the radio station. You got to pay extra for that in premium cars these days, so it's a very welcome sight in this Hyundai. Also, look, more knobs. There's another knob for adjusting the temperature controls and the fan speed. Just so refreshing, isn't it? Plus, this car also comes with the option of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So all in all, in terms of tech, yeah, decent. Before I talk about anything else in this car, I want to talk about range because it's quite important in the Kona Electric. There are two battery options, a 39 kilowatt hour battery pack and a 64 kilowatt hour battery pack. The 39 will give you about 200 miles of range, WLTP, and this 64 will give you 300 miles of range, WLTP. Or at least that's the theory. WLTP is normally not very accurate. Normally, you get slightly less than what they claim. But in the Kona Electric, guess what? I'm getting more. It is hyper efficient. I did the school run yesterday and I managed to get, check this out, 6 miles per kilowatt hour. Multiply 6 by 64, you get 384 miles of range, which is just, I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't think I've sat in another electric car that achieves those figures. It's frankly unbelievable. I will caveat that by saying that the temperature was 12 degrees C and I was running between sort of 20 and 40 miles an hour, not in stop-start traffic, but still very, very impressive. I wanted to do a run in the cold as well, so I did a school run this morning and it was 2 degrees, so I cranked up the heating to the maximum, and that was what it indicated 27 degrees in the car with the heater running full blast, but I still managed to get 3 miles per kilowatt hour. If you do the maths on that, that works out to be just shy of 200 miles. So regardless of what temperature it is, what season it is, you could end up getting between sort of 200 and 400 miles of range in this car. It's just shocking, isn't it? I'm also quite impressed by the fast charging abilities of this car. It's not the best in class, but it will recharge at up to 77 kilowatts. And that means you can go from 10% to 80% in 46 minutes in this car. You combine that with the more than decent range, and what you've got is a car that is more than capable of traveling long distances. On the subject of rapid charging, a slight gripe in that area. The charge port makes the front of the car look a little bit weird. It ruins the lines. But the positioning is quite useful when the flap works. It lets you use chargers whether they're on the left or right hand side of the car, and I must give credit for the built-in lights, which make it easier to use in the dark, and the battery indicator LEDs are a nice touch. What's it like to drive? Again, more than decent, nice and easy to maneuver around town. The steering is quite sharp, quite nippy, quite responsive, but not hyperactive. The gear selector buttons on the center console make it nice and easy to switch between park, reverse, drive, and neutral, and the brakes are actually very good as well. They're nice and responsive, and you can control them using these paddles behind the steering wheel, which lets you increase or decrease the amount of regen, which allows you to basically choose how the car slows down when you lift off the accelerator pedal. Let's talk about power now. There's a choice of motors in this car. If you go for the 64 kilowatt hour battery pack, you're going to get a motor with 204 horsepower. That's enough to take this car from 0 to 62 in 7.9 seconds. So it's not going to melt your face off, but it does have quite a lot of torque, 395 Newton meters of the stuff, which is, well, it's very healthy. In fact, let me show you what 395 Newton meters does. I'll pull to a standstill, and if I switch off the traction control, just hold the button there for a second. There's a little trick to doing this. You have to lock the wheel all the way to the right or left, accelerate, straighten up, and it will literally light up the wheels in such an aggressive manner. I don't know why the car would ever need to do that. Not a lot of electric cars allow you to do that, but I like that. Gives it some character. Something else I want to talk about quickly, and that is the difference in price between the petrol, the hybrid, and the electric Kona. The entry-level petrol starts from around 21,000, the hybrid starts from 23,000, and the electric starts from 27,000 after the government grant. So there's a big difference in price between the cheapest petrol and the cheapest electric. But I'd go for the electric version all day long. And the reason being is that it's hyper efficient. It's so cheap to run this car. I did the maths on it, and using my electricity tariff, it will cost me £4.50 to fill the battery. £4.50 to do in excess of 300 miles, which is quite remarkable. If you drive 8,000 miles a year, that works out to be £120 a year in fuel costs, which is just ridiculous. I have driven many a petrol car that cost £120 a month, let alone £120 a year. This thing will very, very quickly pay for itself. So I guess with all that being said, the question now is, should you buy a Kona Electric? Yes, go and buy it, because it's got brilliant range, it's got brilliant practicality, and it also doesn't cost the earth. This thing ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of people. This right here is one Hyundai, yes, Hyundai, that you should definitely go check out.